You found your way to Whispers of Crimes, a quiet corner where the shadows of the past are gently told. Here, we speak of real crimes and mysteries, not to shock or scare, but to wonder, to reflect, and maybe to help you fall asleep. So close your eyes, let your thoughts slow down, and come with me into tonight's case. In the quiet deserts of New Mexico, a man built a nightmare hidden in plain sight, a soundproof trailer filled with instruments of torture. Women disappeared, some escaped, but their stories would chill the world. Who is David Parker Ray, the man behind the toy box, and how did he evade justice for so long? Prepare to enter a world of control, cruelty, and secrets darker than the desert night. Chapter 1. Early life and psychological background of David Parker Ray. David Parker Ray was born on November 6, 1939, in Belen, New Mexico. His childhood was marred by severe physical and sexual abuse at the hands of his father, a man who introduced him to violent pornography at an alarmingly young age. This early exposure to disturbing sexual material, combined with the abuse he suffered, profoundly shaped his later behavior. Psychologists often cite early childhood trauma as a key factor in the development of sadistic tendencies, and Ray's upbringing fits this pattern. Ray was socially withdrawn throughout his youth, struggling to form healthy relationships. He developed a fixation on sexual domination and control that gradually escalated. During high school, he began collecting sadomasochistic paraphernalia and keeping detailed journals filled with violent sexual fantasies. These writings revealed a preoccupation with inflicting pain and humiliation, often focusing on torture and bondage. After graduating, Ray joined the military but was discharged for medical reasons. He later worked as a mechanic and held various jobs, but his dark fantasies continued to dominate his private life. His 2 failed marriages and strained relationships with his children were emblematic of his inability to connect with others emotionally. Friends and acquaintances described him as polite but unremarkable. No one suspected the horrors lurking behind his quiet exterior. Chapter 2. Constructing the Toy Box, a Chamber of Terror. In the early 1990s, Ray transformed a small trailer home parked near Elephant Butte Lake in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, into a customized torture chamber. This toy box, as it would later be called, was designed with horrifying ingenuity and cruel precision. It was soundproofed and equipped with restraints, pulleys, chains, surgical instruments, leg spreader bars, and electrical devices meant to induce pain. Inside, the trailer was like a laboratory of sadism. Detailed anatomical charts were pinned to the walls, highlighting nerve clusters and sensitive areas for maximum suffering. A mirror fixed to the ceiling allowed victims to see the tortures inflicted upon them, amplifying psychological trauma. Small cameras were installed to record the events, which Ray viewed repeatedly for sexual gratification. One of the most chilling elements was an audio tape labeled, "Hello, bitch." In it, Ray coldly narrated to his victims what would happen to them, how he would drug, rape, and torture them in gruesome detail. The tape's steady voice was intended to break down victims mentally before physical abuse began. Ray's methodical approach showed he was more than a depraved individual acting on impulse. He was a calculated predator with a deeply disturbing modus operandi. Chapter 3. The Horrific Crimes and Victims' Experiences. Ray's primary method was to abduct women, often sex workers or drifters vulnerable to his lures, drug them with powerful sedatives, and imprison them in the trailer for days. He forced them into sadomasochistic sexual acts that combined bondage, physical violence, and psychological manipulation. Many of the victims were subjected to repeated sexual assaults and torture sessions lasting hours. Some victims were released, often after being left in remote locations, disoriented and traumatized. Others vanished without a trace, presumed dead. Investigators later discovered more than 100 videotapes showing Ray torturing multiple women. Though the total number of victims remains uncertain, police estimate that at least a dozen women were abducted and subjected to this nightmare. Among the survivors was Cynthia Vigil. In 1999, she was lured to Ray's trailer with promises of payment for sex work. Once inside, she was bound and gagged but managed to escape when Ray carelessly left the trailer door unlocked. Cynthia ran naked and bleeding to a nearby trailer, where she called police and described her ordeal. Her escape led to Ray's arrest and the discovery of the torture chamber. Other victims included Angelica Montano and Kelly Garrett, whose stories corroborated the scale of Ray's crimes and the extent of his sadism. Their testimonies revealed a chilling pattern of manipulation, coercion, and brutal violence. Chapter 4: Accomplices and the Network of Horror. David Parker Ray was not acting entirely alone. His longtime partner, Cindy Hendy, actively assisted him during the kidnappings and torture sessions. Hendy, a transient woman with a history of drug use and criminal activity, participated in the luring and physical abuse of the victims. Their relationship was reportedly complex, with elements of codependency and shared sadistic fantasies. Ray's daughter, Glenda Jessie Ray, also came under suspicion. As a park ranger like her father, she allegedly helped recruit victims and facilitated their abductions. Jessie's involvement shocked the local community and demonstrated how Ray's depravity extended into his family. Roy Yancey, a former boyfriend of Jessie, confessed to murdering a woman named Marie Parker under Ray's orders, though no body was ever found. Yancey's testimony indicated that Ray may have been involved in multiple murders beyond those previously documented. The possibility that Ray was part of a wider network of individuals engaged in sexual torture and murder has never been fully explored. He communicated with others in sadomasochistic circles and may have exchanged videotapes, suggesting his crimes were not isolated incidents but part of a larger subculture. Chapter 5: The Arrest, Investigation, and Legal Battle. Ray's arrest came swiftly after Cynthia Vigil escaped and alerted authorities in March 1999. Police searched his trailer and uncovered the soundproof torture chamber, videotapes, instruments, and detailed notes. The evidence was overwhelming and horrific. Investigators faced significant challenges in prosecuting Ray. Many victims were traumatized and had impaired memories due to the drugs administered during captivity. Some survivors initially recanted or were deemed unreliable due to fragmented recollections. The prosecution had to rely heavily on physical evidence, videotapes, and survivor testimonies to build a case. Ray was charged with multiple counts, including kidnapping, sexual assault, torture, and conspiracy. During pretrial hearings, his defense attorneys attempted to argue diminished responsibility due to mental illness, but psychiatric evaluations concluded Ray was competent and aware of his actions. In 2001, Ray was convicted on multiple charges and sentenced to 224 years in prison. The verdict was seen as a victory for the victims and a rare example of justice against an exceptionally cruel serial offender. Chapter 6: The Psychological Profile of a Sadistic Serial Killer. David Parker Ray's case is a textbook example of an organized sexual sadist. Unlike impulsive predators, Ray meticulously planned his crimes, designed specialized torture equipment, and psychologically prepared his victims for abuse. He demonstrated traits consistent with psychopathy, lack of empathy, manipulativeness, superficial charm, and callousness. His ability to maintain a normal public facade while committing monstrous acts aligns with diagnostic criteria for antisocial personality disorder. Ray's control over his victims was both physical and psychological. He used drugs, threats, and torture devices to break down resistance. The recorded audio tapes show a cold, calculating mind focused on domination. Psychologists suggest that Ray's behavior was driven by deep-seated needs to exert power and control, rooted in early trauma and reinforced by his fantasies. His ability to involve accomplices, including family, further illustrates his manipulative skills and charisma in some contexts, despite his violent tendencies. Chapter 7: Aftermath, Legacy, and Continuing Investigations. David Parker Ray died of a heart attack in prison in May 2002, only 3 years after his arrest. His death left many questions unanswered. Investigators believe he may have killed many more women than documented, but without his testimony, the true extent of his crimes remains unknown. The case exposed shortcomings in law enforcement's approach to trauma victims, especially those affected by drug-induced memory loss. It sparked advances in forensic interviewing techniques and increased awareness of how trauma impacts victim testimony. Ray's toy box remains a chilling symbol of human cruelty and the depths of depravity. His crimes are studied in criminal psychology and forensic science as examples of extreme sadistic behavior. Law enforcement agencies continue to investigate cold cases in the Southwest that may be linked to Ray. His story serves as a warning about the dangers of hidden evil in ordinary places, and the importance of vigilance and support for victims of sexual violence. That's all for tonight's story. Another thread in the web of true crime, quietly unraveling as the night goes on. If you're still with me, thanks for listening. And if sleep has already taken you, may your dreams be peaceful and your mind at ease. I'll be here next time by the fire with another story waiting to be told. Good night. And don't forget to lock your doors.